So you're 19 years old. You got a Datsun 510 4-door station wagon. You're living in Corpus Christi, and you've been playing drums, parents' house, and that type of stuff, listening to all these guys that you eventually would play with.
Yes.
And what happens? You basically, as a musician, because it fascinates me as a comedian. Like when I started out, it was all about getting on at Nick's Comedy Stop and the Comedy Connection and Dick Doherty's Comedy Club and getting established there. And then there becomes that moment where you've done that, and you're just like, all right.
Now what?
Yeah, now where do I go? That must happen musically too?
Yeah, I was in Corpus and my father had died. Oh. And I looked around, and I'd been to Austin to visit my sister who was at the University of Texas 3 or 4 years earlier. And I woke up one day, I was in music school in Corpus. And it's funny, I just saw Whiplash, and I had this drum instructor who I went in to take with him because he's one of the best guys in rudimental playing. And he said, "You're holding your sticks wrong." And he said, "I want you to hold them traditional, military style." I said, "Yeah, I don't do that anymore." He said, "Yeah, you're holding them wrong. A French match grip." I said, "Well, Billy Cobham holds his sticks like this." And I had been doing that since I was a kid. And
just to let our listeners know, if you ever watch like a drummer play, you pick them up the way you naturally would, which you grab them both the same way.
Yeah.
And then there's that other way where the left hand, if you're a right-handed drummer, it's sort of laying sideways across your hand. That's considered traditional. The other is called match.
It's called match grip, and there's various styles of that. But the thing was because of marching drums. Like in military operations, the drum hung to the side, so the stick hit perfect when you held the left hand right.
Because the drum would hang to one side.
Yeah, so you hold that hand, but you hold the stick that way in the hand that's on the side of the drum. I mean the other side.
Okay.
Anyway, so and he said, "I don't care how Billy Cobham holds his drumsticks." He goes, "You're not going to hold them that way." I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm done." And I got up and I walked out. And I woke up
that's why I didn't like Whiplash. I'm just sitting there watching the guys like, dude, you got the talent. You don't need to sit here and get yelled at. I'm not saying it wasn't a tremendous performance by the guy from the insurance commercials, whatever the hell his name is. I don't know what his name is, but he's awesome. He's awesome. But it also goes to show you, that's like that thing with acting, that you are handcuffed by the material. Like if this guy doesn't get that script, he just has to keep going like whatever the hell he says in those commercials.
No. So I woke up the next day and I go, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm going to Austin. That place was awesome when I visited.
Did you say that to the teacher?
No, I didn't say it.
Is he screaming at you like Michael Douglas? And
No, I went back the next day and I went to all my teachers and I said, "Hey, I don't care what you're going to do with my grades. I'm out of here." And they go, "When are you leaving?" I go, "Right now. After I leave the building. I got the car packed and I'm on my way. Do whatever you want to with my grades or any of that stuff. I got to go." Now,
were you always like that sort of strong person? Because I think if I was 19 years old and if some guy like the dude in Whiplash said, "You're holding your sticks wrong," I would be like, "Oh, okay." And then when he yelled at me, I'd be like, "You're right, I know. I am a piece of shit."
You said, we touched on this a minute ago when you said that, because when I said I deserve this, I go, "Oh, did I say that?" Because, I've been trying to work over my Catholic guilt too,
Right.
So sometimes I go, I deserve way more than I got, and I don't really deserve anything that I even have, so
right.
but that pendulum doesn't swing as wide these days. So that's the good news. But no, I've always kind of been defiant and a contrarian and a bunch of other stuff with some good stuff. But, no, that was easy because something told me, you need to get out of here. There's something for you there that you're not going to find.
But I think
here.
a lot of people feel that, but they don't act on it. Like I do both. Like I have times where I have this feeling, I'm just like, "What, dude? Fuck you! I'm out of here." And then I have other times where that voice is screaming at me, waking me up at night. I'm grinding my teeth, and I still like ignore it. Like this year's the first year. This year, we're 3 weeks into it. I mean, in the last year, I've really started to listen to my gut. And if I meet somebody and despite what they're doing and all their accolades and everything, if my gut has that feeling of like, dude, this isn't right, I've walked away from it. And two of the things that it really came back like, wow, man, I was right on that one. So it took me almost 50 years to figure that out. But so I'm always like drawn to stories like that. So then you leave. You say, "Fuck that," to the Whiplash guy.
Yeah, so I got, it's funny you said that because, kind of aren't we like that? I go, the best thing that I can do is when I have that intuition that's attached to some kind of passion, to actually listen to that as opposed to, fuck that, I better do something different. That's that big turning point.
Right.
And that's what happened right then. I went, I don't know why I'm going there. All I know is that something tells me that I need to go there. So I took the $200 I had in my pocket, 4-piece drum kit, and about 6 changes of clothes, and I just took off and drove there.
So you drive, and then you show up. Just because I always try to encourage people who listen to this podcast to, if there's nothing wrong with being in a cubicle and doing that, but if you don't want to do it, you have this thing telling you to throw 6 shirts into a car and drive somewhere that you should do it. So when you show up, you have nowhere to. And this is the big questions people always have when it comes to following a dream. Is like then they're always like, and then what? And it's kind of like, what would you say? You just figure it out as you get there.
Yeah, the thing, if you keep working and you don't give up and you follow that intuition, you have some common sense and pay attention to the things right in front of you, I go, mostly things work out. I mean, they work out one way or the other.
So how long did you sleep in your car for?
Well, I didn't do this. See, there were some guys that had a band up in Austin. They lived in this little shack outside in a little town called Manor, Texas. It was 14 miles outside of Austin. They said they had just come back a few weeks earlier. They go, yeah, we abandoned the place. And they go, it's got the rest of the rent paid. And I went, can I get the key to that joint?
Okay.
That's one of those deals where you go, I can maybe use that if you want to give it to me, if it's rent's paid. So I went there. And it was outside, and I had nothing. I was sitting there going, now what? First thing.
So the rent was paid for how long? 14 days?
The rent was paid for like another couple of weeks. And I had some guys that say, hey, why don't we go up there? Let's go up there. So the idea was we were going to have a band. So I said, come on up there. I'm going. Let's go. We can have their old house and blah. So we did that. And nobody had anything, and we kind of sat around and jammed in the house. We didn't really ever do anything except that. Meanwhile, one guy went and got a job, and another guy went and got a job, and I had the only car. I drove a guy to his job, and he covered my rent the next month because we were out there for a couple of months.
Right.
This story could get really long.
No. This is all fascinating. What kind of kit were you playing at that time?
I had a Gretsch kit.
You did?
I had a 4-piece Gretsch kit.
What do you play now? You Ludwig guy?
Well, I play Ludwig and I play fives. I play both of them.
Oh, okay.
I was a Ludwig guy. My very first kit I played was Ludwig and Zildjian.
Mm-hmm. Which was basically, that was the Cadillac of back then before all these, for the Japanese companies and...
Yeah, Mitch Mitchell, I heard that. What's he doing? And I saw a picture and I went, yeah, man, that's right. What I want.
Because Ludwig was topping over there. What was it, Premier Drums over in England?
Premier England, yeah, he played those too, but it was Premier, right. And then there was Yamaha and Pearl and all that were around for a while, but when they like everything else, they finally got here.
Right. So how long before you got into an actual situation after you moved to Austin that you were in a band, you guys were playing the clubs, you could eat, and you could make your rent?
That was 2 years later.
2 years later?
Yeah.
Now, were you one of those guys, did you just, like, as far as, like, other musicians seeing you and being like, I want to play with this guy, or that's the kind of guy, because the drums are the foundation. Did you have a style that did you have to go out and shake a bunch of hands, or are you one of those guys that sat down and played and people were just like, that guy can play?
Well, here's what happened. One of the guys that came up later to be in that band, and then immediately, we didn't have a band, was a sax player who lives here, Joe Sublette, lives here in L.A., and he got a gig with a band called Paul Ray and the Cobras. And there was another band called Greasy Wheels who were looking for a drummer, and I didn't really have a gig. And he said, you ought to check out my roommate. He's really good. So I went and auditioned with a bunch of other guys, and they said, you got the gig. That's where I started making a steady paycheck. Paper on Friday,
Right. Now, because you needed that gig, were you extra nervous? It's one of your first gigs? Or
no, I mean, I'm not even more nervous than I was just to begin with about life, but, I mean,
Was that one of those things because you were always playing with other people that you didn't feel the nerves? You know what I mean?
Well, no,
like
I mean, I did.
Anxiety?
I mean, I still do now. You're talking about looking over at Steven Stills. I'm going, shit,
Yeah.
I better get the right feel to this thing. No, it's this way. It's every day. It's like it's a daily thing. Like, I look for something that helps calm me. It keeps me in the moment. But you have those moments where you're stepping out on stage. Shit, I hope I do good.
Right.
And I will do. I got it. Maybe I can. Whatever.
Have you ever gotten lost in a song?
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I don't mean in a good way.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I do this show. Yeah. I do this show. It's called the Goddamn Comedy Jam.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing. It's funny you went romantic. Yes, all the time.
No, it's true.
I meant like so whatever. It's basically, there's a lot of comedians like myself that play instruments and, wish that they had your abilities on whatever instruments, and we end up becoming comedians. So this guy, Josh Adam Myers, he has this comedy show where you go up, you do 10, 15 minutes, tell stories about going to concerts, and then you go back, you jam with the band. You either play guitar, you sing, or you play drums. So I've done it like 3 times, did it last night, and sometimes I find myself so listening to the bass player so I stay on time, I forget. I'm not listening to the lyrics. And like this song we played last night, the chorus went around twice the first time and only went around once before it went to the bridge the second time. And I'm literally in the middle of it going, is this the first time or the second time we played this? Has that happened to you?
Well, yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing, is after enough experience, and Stevie used to say this, he said, if we just make our ears real big and pay attention, we have the tools and we'll be all right. And what I find about that, is that the other thing is I can really be front running the deal.
Right.
It's no different than the quarterback he's taking the snap and the receiver's already down the field and he's throwing the ball. The guy's not down there yet.
Right.
So when the guy gets down there and I see what's going on, then you act in the moment. And that's really what I do. Everything's about living in the instant. And if you're listening to everybody, unless nobody knows what's going on, you'll all do it together, and whatever it is will be fine. And if it's not, you go back and retool and figure out what you did wrong together.